On, guys, it is the Jewish M Shadows here slash Daniel Schachter, and we're gonna do a different type of video today. We're not gonna do the same video like hockey or anything like that. We're gonna talk about a movie series, one of my favorite movie series of all fucking time, the Planet of the Apes movie series. And in this video, we're not just gonna be talking like reviews or like summaries or anything like that. I'm going to be going over some interesting facts, and in this particular video, you might see a couple of these videos later on, but I just want to sort of display it because there's no videos on YouTube here about this, some alternate endings that they came up with, some original script ideas, all that stuff I'm going to cover in this video. So, first of all, if you haven't seen these movies, see them because they're fucking great, including the new one, including Rise, which is great, and I'm looking forward to the new one of the reboot. Anyway, so we'll start with the first movie. So originally, this movie was actually conceived back in 1964. Rod Serling, the Twilight Zone guy, basically, he read the book and he's like, shit, he's like, this is good. And so basically he wanted to, create a movie out of it. So the book, so I'm just gonna explain a little bit differences between the book and the film. So the book, it does have them crash land, right? But the difference between the book and the movie is the book, they actually know it's another planet. It's not Earth. In the movie, it's Earth. Spoiler alert, but who gives a shit? So they actually know it's another planet, and what happens is they crash land, and the difference in the book, of course, is that the ape society is like modern day. It's like modern day, whereas it's more primitive. It's not necessarily not modern day in the movie, but it's primitive compared to what we have today, obviously. And in the book and the movie have the same names, like Cornelius, Zira, Dr. Zaius, but the guy is a French guy because he's French. And in the movie, the apes speak English because, of course, it's Earth. But it's a movie. But anyway, in the book, the apes speak their own language. It's a name, and eventually the French guy learns it. Now, here's some differences. In the book, the ending is that he chooses himself to go back because he knows that in the apes, because he has a child, and he knows that in the ape society, he wants his child to grow up like everyone else, and he knows that his child will be isolated. Whether he grows up like everyone else, he knows he'll be isolated from other kids, and they'll all be sort of known as this sort of oddity rather than a person of the fucking society. So he goes back to Earth, and they're going back to Earth, and it takes about a year to go back to Earth, and they realize that the people who are greeting them back on Earth to help them land the spaceship and all that are apes. They're fucking apes. So the moral of the story was actually that humans kill each other, and that they kept apes as slaves, and the apes rose up, and that happened, and that's like the evolution. Like that's supposedly like the thought, like it's questioning evolution. It's saying that sure we might have evolved from apes, but did we really evolve from apes intelligently? Maybe physically, but you know what I mean? So that's sort of the story. Like, oh my God, but actually we find out it's Earth in the movie. Rod Serling created this own ending himself. Now, so that was going to be the original ending in the movie. That somehow they salvaged the spaceship. Somehow they salvaged the spaceship and all that. But in the original makeup tests, it was like Dr. Zaius was basically saying, the original scripts, Dr. Zaius was like, you better get out of here. You're a threat to us. Because, man, it was a different planet. Like, it was going to be a different planet. And that was the thing. No one knew that man once ruled the planet. But Dr. Zaius was like, listen, I always known about this, but we can't have man rule again, because then he'll just keep on destroying the planet over and over again. We don't want that to happen. And then so the guy who's not Taylor but Thomas in the original script, Thomas was like, but in my planet, we've proven that we've proven that like civilized man works and like not every man's evil. And then Dr. Zaius is like, we can't take that risk. And so then he's like, you're gonna have to get off this planet in a few days, otherwise you know what's gonna happen to you. And that's it. That is just about it for the first one. There were other tests, and Rod Serling really wanted that Statue of Liberty ending. He even said like, then Taylor or Thomas, whatever the fuck his name was, goes into the desert, and what happens, or not goes into the desert. What during the another later script version was that the archaeological dig that Cornelius was doing. It was like they were actually doing a dig at the time. That was like in the actual book, and that was supposed to be that they were actually doing the dig. Not the dig was already done, but they were doing the dig, and he finds the metal arm of the Statue of Liberty. That was another ending that they had supposedly. So that's that, and that's the Planet of the Apes. So the actual ending was that they find the dig, and they find that, okay, humans did live here once, and Zaius knows it, and Zaius is like, fuck, like, all right, like, what are we gonna do? And so so just his luck that Taylor decides to go out on his own, right? And so Zaius is just basically like, all right, fuck this never happened. And then they're like, what? And then he's like, dude, like, listen, like, you don't want to know, like, I'll tell you everything, but it's a bumpy fucking ride. And that's when he finds the Statue of Liberty and the thing and the famous ending, damn you all to hell, all that good stuff. So that was the first movie. If there's anything else that you guys know about the original scripts and all that, there's something on YouTube. Go comment. Okay. So the second movie, there were some other endings in the second movie that never came about. So first of all, the second movie takes place just after the first movie. Of course, there was no novelization. There was a novelization, but there's no novel of this. This was This is a very, very mixed reviews. Not in the movie, but whether there should have been a sequel or not. Because honestly, you could have ended the Planet of the Apes movie with the first two. Like, honestly. Like, you could have ended the Planet of the Apes movie with the first one, like, damn, it's Earth, like, we better watch the hell out. The second one's like, alright, well, I'll tell you. So, I'm just going to briefly explain some things. So, the second one, I'm just going to pull up one of the other endings. I remember the first ending. The first, like, original ending. So, it basically takes place after the first one. Now, you notice that Taylor and Nova are walking in the desert with each other because when they ran away from the first movie, he's like, I want 3 weeks of rations, 2 weeks, or a week, or whatever the hell. But he's like, we'll start our own fucking colony and all that stuff. And he tries to get Nova to speak. And eventually he starts witnessing these weird, like, illusions, like this weird, like, fire and the cracks. And he eventually falls into, like, a rock or something like that. And Nova's like, what the hell? And so somehow this other astronaut gets on Earth again. I don't know how the same exact time, the same exact place. I don't know. Maybe this magnet in the fucking spaceship. I don't know. It's a movie. Listen. So basically, what happens is, so this other astronaut then goes back to the ape city. He's like, oh my god, the apes are like taking over. They don't like humans. And, like, oh my god, like, this one gorilla is like, oh, the only good humans are dead human. And it's like, ah. And then, so he's like, fuck. And then he finds Cornelius and Zira. And Cornelius and Zira are like, like, oh, Taylor was a great motherfucker. And, like, go find him out in the Forbidden Zone. And, like, they go, or no, not go find him in the Forbidden Zone. He gets captured. And then they're like, oh, they're marked for target practice. And so they help him escape, and they escape, and like Brent like fights the chimpanzee or gorilla, and I'm explaining this more than I should, but then they go like to the Forbidden Zone, right? And those scenes I kind of forget. They're in the Forbidden Zone, and they wander, and then the same illusions happen to them, but they wander around this like tunnel, and they go in this little like crack. opening, and they find like he finds like it was Earth because he finds it said like Queens something Queensboro, something like that, Queens Plaza, and he's like shit, like this is Earth, and it's a railroad track, and he's like all right, and he's like man, he's like this is where I used to work here, and all of a sudden he hears the noise, and the noise is just a sound that's luring him in, and it's the mutants, of course, who are underdwellers who survived the nuclear war that happened, which made the apes sort of take over, and they were the survivors of the war. And so basically, the mutants, for whatever reason, they don't want him around. They see him as a threat. I don't understand this. That's the one thing I don't understand about the Planet of the Apes movies. Why the hell are they such a threat? Like I get the apes, I get Taylor being a threat, but honestly, like if he doesn't reproduce, it doesn't even fucking matter. Like who cares? Like honestly, like let him be around. Like he might be a threat, but just like keep him under like detention. Don't fucking like I don't understand that. Like they're going too extreme. They talk about humans being destructive, but the apes are kind of just as destructive in a way. Anyway, so they see him as a threat for some reason. I don't know why. They could just keep him there in prison as well. Um, and they're like, well, actually, then afterwards they say like, listen, like the apes, we know they're coming for us. Will you help? Will you help? Will you help us? And he's like, I don't know, man. He's like, who knows? He's like, he like plays a little mind game with them. And what happens is they're like, well, they like torture him mentally, and then they like make him like almost rape Nova, and then they eventually like put him in a prison with Taylor, and they're like, come here, like, and then they're like show him like the bomb, and they worship an atomic bomb, and they're like, what the hell are you doing, worshiping an atomic bomb? And then they reveal their faces, and they're like their epidermises are gone, and it's like mutated like fucking creatures, and they like worship this bomb, and it's fucking weird, but it's what it is, man. Beauty's in the eye of the goddamn beholder. Um, now, now, the ending, of course, is the apes come in and they eventually they're like kill everyone, and this is what I mean by more destructive. They end up killing everyone without even reason, and well, the reason for invading is that they say it's because humans are in the Forbidden Zone, but it's really because they need to expand. Um, This video is going kind of long, but I'll just tell you this first two, yeah. So what happens is Taylor like sees Dr. Zaius and he's shot, and then Taylor's like, "Help me," and Dr. Zaius is like, "Oh no, you're a man, like fuck you," and then he's like, "Fuck you," and then he like hits the atomic bomb, and the atomic bomb blows up the entire Earth, and that's the end of the movie. But the original end of the movie was interesting. There were original scripts. So Pierre Boyle, the author of the original movie, right? The author of the original book to the movie, he wanted an ending in which the world doesn't necessarily blow up, but he wants. So this is Pierre Boyle's ending. So it says, I remember this, but let me just. So he says that. So he wants that they encounter primitive humans beyond the Forbidden Zone. So beyond the Forbidden Zone, it's primitive humans, and then re-educate them. So it's like they find humans in the wild, and they re-educate them, and eventually, years later, they rise up against the apes, and they eventually like battle the apes, and they win. But Taylor's killed by a human because he eventually helps some apes, but he's killed by the human, and then it ends where Dr. Zaius is just nothing more than just a trained ape in a circus, like we see today, and that's the original ending. And so that was the original ending. That's what they wanted. Then they basically said, all right, like we don't want that. We want it to be more like creepy, more like sci-fi. That's more like psychological. That's more like a yeah. So they said, let's make it more like a Hungarian Revolution type thing, right? And let's this time make it that I've actually never seen this ending before. I'm reading it right now. This is a different one. So they join humans. So they find the remains of a 20th century town. I'll tell you the third one. 20th century town. They join humans and they live a carefree life under. And then another spaceship crashes with an astronaut surviving. The second astronaut leads the humans on attack against the apes, and the apes plan to exterminate the humans. Humans take over. But Taylor is not killed. Rather, remembering a bomb, he found the humans' arsenal and disgusted hatred he has witnessed. Taylor decides to destroy everything so that God can try it all over again. He crashes the ship into the city, igniting a nuclear holocaust, which leaves nothing except just a flower and a bee. The birds and the bees. So, that's the second ending. So that's the first like atomic bomb type thing that goes on. Where there's a bomb, but he ignites it so that he purposely does it. He purposely does it in the second movie as well. So the third ending was I forget how it came about, but the third ending, fuck, dude, the mutants look like fuckers. The third ending was that years later, this was an actual part of the script. The third ending was that years later, after the bomb set off, but the bomb only destroys the mutant city and the guerrilla army. It doesn't destroy the world like that. The destroying the world part was because Charlton Heston didn't want to be in other sequels because he's like, you're gonna ruin this series, and I mean, it didn't ruin it, but the final scene was going to be set far in the future, like way after like the gorillas were all killed off, like the evil gorillas were killed off, and the mutants were killed, and Taylor and all that was killed. It was going to be years later. Humans and apes were sitting in a circle, and the lawgiver, or not the lawgiver, but some other guy was reading the story of it and being like, oh, like, and then they're all like together and they're like in harmony. And that was going to be the end of the movie. But Rod Serling wanted like, so the original ending, the actual original ending was that they were going to be, they were like living in harmony together. That was the original ending. And they showed like some ape-human hybrid like that, but that's fucked up. But that actually was the ending for the Battle of the Planet of the Apes, in which it was the lawgiver reading the humans and the ape children that, oh, Caesar created it, and humans and apes have lived in harmony ever since. So that was the ending. So those were all the endings. If there's any more endings that were originally in the script, comment, message me, do whatever the hell you want. But I find this very interesting. It's just a very interesting movie, very interesting sci-fi series, very interesting story. So there might be a part 2 of this, but the other endings, I mean, the other alternate endings, they're not as good as these, because these, they really didn't know what to do with these movies, whereas Escape, Conquest, and Battle, it was really, they knew what they were doing. They just wanted to clean up the series. So, okay. So that's it. So that's this video. So again, the original ending to the first movie and the original endings to the second movie. I think the original ending to the second movie were more interesting. Yeah, so the 3 endings, that was very interesting. How you had the first one in which it was, not even mutants involved. The second one in which it was, no mutants involved. And the third one, even though mutants were involved, it was that it was only going to blow up a little portion, and humans and apes live together in harmony. So that's very interesting. But Rod Serling, obviously, or whoever, it wasn't Rod Serling, whoever he wanted more of a dark ending to it. Wanted like, we're done. This is what happens when this is just nature. You can't help it. Humans aren't destructive. Apes aren't destructive. It's just how it is. They're both destructive. So that's that. And so some trivia here before I end. I'm reading. Look at this. Look at this trivia. Um, so okay. So it says here that. Oh wow. Okay. So the only trivia I'm gonna say is it's just like the bridge on the River Kwai. That's how they set it up in Pierre Boyle's honor. Okay. So that's this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Interesting endings, and comment, subscribe, and watch my other videos, and tell motherfuckers about it, alright? Motherfuckers.